So and our Zoom is all set up. Welcome to our guests. Hi, Jerry.
Hey.
Roll call from my right. Rockenbach. Dave Trudeau. Easted.
Karen Knota.
Thank you. Have you had a chance to review the minutes from July?
Yeah.
Do I have a motion for approval? So moved. Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Approved. So for announcements, I've got a couple of things, and then I'll open it up to whomever else might have one. So the first thing I would point out, we have, you may recall seeing the email from me. I have spoken with Carl, and they're going to be doing planning for the annual budget. And so I indicated that we would get together and identify if there was something that we would want to propose at the annual meeting to make a floor motion. And so Rachel helped me and has organized a meeting for August 17th at 9 o'clock a.m. We're going to do a Zoom meeting. So I think you all have gotten the invite for that. Is that right? Okay. Is everybody going to be in attendance?
I still don't know.
Are we good? Okay.
Wait, I don't know if I got an invite. Oh. No, I don't think I did.
I'll send you.
Oh, okay. I do have that email.
Okay. All right. So that would be announcement number one. The second announcement I would make is I think many of you are familiar with the Citizens Wood County Groundwater Group. Some of us have attended their meetings, and they're fairly, they have a very diverse group. They've got a lot of ag members in it, and if you've attended their sessions, they're usually pretty good. I would point out that next week, Monday, August 16th, they have a meeting at 2 o'clock, and it is, you can be there in person in Wood County or attend via Zoom, a virtual meeting. So I would recommend attending that if you've got the time. A lot of good information to be shared. And their speaker is going to be a representative from Ron Kine's office talking about federal clean water initiatives, and I think that's right up our alley. The third thing I would mention then is some of you may have seen this from your lake associations, or you may have seen it from Gina at Tri-Lakes, and it's a lake weed harvesting notice. And I think it was put out there to provide clarification about what the weed cutters will do, how close they'll come to the shorelines and such. And I think it's important for us to know that. I know that when I've been at the farmer's market, people have asked me about weed cutting. And so this is helpful. I sent it around, or you may have gotten it from your lake associations. It's helpful to understand that. So those are the three things I had. Does anybody else have an announcement? Okay. Anybody from our Zoom guests? Okay, we'll go on to the next item. There are really three priorities we've got to address today. One is kind of a review of.
Can we also include people in the room?
Yeah, I didn't see a hand.
Okay. I just want to make sure we include them. Okay. Did you
have some?
No, I didn't have any questions right now. I'm fine.
Okay. So there are three priorities we want to make sure that we cover today. One is the state of the lakes, basically our observations, so that we can put together our thoughts for next year. We've done this 2 years now in 2019, and then this past weekend, I've talked with Phil about putting together some Google Docs so that it's a living document. Next year, when we pick this up, we've got a timetable to work with. We've got some hard documents that we can use so that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The other thing we want to talk about is surface water grant planning for the coming year. We're approaching September already. I know that Scott had told us about something that I think is called a planning grant for the DNR. And I believe that has a deadline of September. Does that sound right, Dave? Are you familiar with that?
I believe it needs to get to Scott by December 20th. Still the same November 1st.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Application deadline, but it has to go through your area water biologist.
Okay. So as one one of the things we want to talk about. And then, the other thing that we want to talk about, if you recall, a few months ago, we had Eric Olson here talking about capacity in our group. And, so Rachel was kind enough to document the keynotes from it. We went through that at the last meeting. We've not really given it sufficient time yet, so Rachel has agreed, to lead us again in a discussion so that we can identify those 3 or 4 key priorities that we're going to be working on near term, right, Rachel? So, with that, I think I appreciate, number one, I want to say thank you to everyone who was involved in the planning for State of our Lakes and, for all of the work that went into it, the documents we had to procure, all of the donations that we got. People were tremendously generous, and I know that those things don't come just automatically. So I see Bemkowski sitting back there. I know Bob was out there pounding the bushes, and all of you in our group, thank you for that. And we had great door prizes. We had some great silent auction items, so it was really good. From my viewpoint, I think this was really a great event, and I think it reflected all the hard work that went into it. So congratulations to everybody who was a part of it. I hope that we'll do this again next year. And so we have a lot of, I think, a lot to draw from. The weather certainly impacted us, but anytime that you schedule an outdoor event, whether it's an event like this, which was pretty broad, or it's a wedding or anything else, we're always subject to the weather. So we have no control over that, but I think the success of the event really showed a lot of work for them. So thanks, everybody. So with that, we're going to be collecting documents, timetables, all the things that we worked so hard on the past month or two. And Phil is going to help put together some Google Docs so that it becomes a living document. And once we've done that, then we'll send it around to all of us who were involved here, and everybody kind of have a stab at it. Next year, 2 months before the scheduled event, then we've got a good library of things to draw from. So with that, let's move on to the surface water grant planning, Dave.
Excuse me.
Can we talk a little bit about just how we should approach
Before we
that?
go on,
Mhm.
can I just mention something? Nobody's asked how many people attended. I thought that was kind of important to know. So I counted all of our little skits that we passed out, and we had 102,
Oh, really?
which was more than I
That's
had
excellent.
expected. So I was kind of excited about that, because, you know, you can't tell by just watching people underneath tents trying to keep out of the rain. So it was pretty impressive considering the inclement weather that we experienced. So
And I thought it was impressive too, that even once the rain came and it's coming hard, people didn't scatter. They
They
stayed.
didn't.
No,
So
stay.
they didn't. It was really quite a testament to their interest in what's going on in the watershed. So I was really impressed by that.
I would say 2 things about that. One is, I had heard when Tracy Hames from Wisconsin Wetlands had done his presentation, when he sat down, I said, hey, you know, nice, I really like your message. And he said, you know, I really like the eye contact from the people who were in attendance. He said, they're really paying attention. And he said, I don't always see that, so that was really good to see. And so, yeah, I was happy to hear that, and I agree with him. The second thing I would say to Jerry Wiesinger, who suggested that we rent those tents, that saved our bacon on Saturday. So thank you, Jerry. Good call, sir.
We missed you, Jerry. We missed you.
You're welcome, and I regret that I couldn't be there.
But thank you for all that you did. You were the reason we were able to do it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else want to make a comment about that? Otherwise, we'll move on.
I do have a question.
Rachel.
So I unfortunately couldn't make it as well. Could I ask for you all to share an impression or a takeaway from that day?
I have an impression that was kind of surprising. I wasn't expecting it, and I hope all of you got to experience this as well. But many of the attendees came up to me and personally thanked me and us for all that we do to help with the watershed. And I'm telling you right now, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't, solicit it. They just did it on their own. And it really made me feel like, all the time we had put into it was really worth it, and that people do care. So that was surprising and wonderful.
It's good to hear.
It was really good, Gary. I was really impressed with that.
I was surprised that there wasn't a mad rush to go get food once it was available. I mean, people were engaged in conversations, asking questions, and like Don said, they were very attentive, so, that was good.
Yeah.
And do you think, Karen, because I unfortunately was not able to be there as well, I was out of town, but do you think that the outreach that we're gaining now are more of the residents from all the lakes, from Sherwood, Camelot, and Narrow Lake?
Definitely.
Okay.
And I also think that our booth that you were so nice to give us the display for, that booth has done a lot of good for our
Good.
group and for clean water in general. I mean, the amount of people who stop by the booth, repeat people stop by the booth, it's been wonderful.
Good.
So I encourage anybody who wants to come and see us at the booth or, be at the booth to give information out because it's a great experience. And Barb and I will be there this Friday. Come see us on Friday. We'd love to see you.
I don't mind if you want to do it Friday. I'm available if you need.
No, we're giving you the night, we're giving you the day off. We already said that. Al will help us put it up. And you can, because we're kind of short, but Al will help us with it. Al told me not to say that, by the way.
Vertically challenged.
Yeah, vertically challenged.
So I would mention one thing, and it wasn't so much about somebody who attended, but some folks who had planned to attend but couldn't. We had what I consider was a very successful farm tour at Heartland Farms, probably 2 weeks beforehand. Many of you were on that tour. And the Pavelskis, Jeremy and Alicia, who Jeremy is the president, and he's one of the family members. Alicia's his wife. And I talked with them about our event, and they said, we are really excited about that. We want to come. And they had planned to come. They didn't show up, but they sent me an email that afternoon, and they said, I really regret, Jeremy sent the email, and he said, I really regret that we weren't there because it sounded like such a terrific event. But they had like an inch and a half of rain the night before, and he said, we've got a lot of crop damage here, and he said, unfortunately, that took precedent. He said, but I like what you guys are doing. Let's keep the relationship going. And to me, that's some outreach that's going to be really important to us. They're very influential people amongst the agriculture neighbors upstream, and I think that's really cool that they would take the time to actually contact us and explain why it was that they didn't come.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is we will be posting this on YouTube. Where Eric Peterson was kind enough to videotape it. So if anybody missed it, they can certainly go there and see it. I don't know when that's going to happen. It's up to Eric to get it to us, but I'm hoping within the next, few weeks. So just because you couldn't physically be there, you'll be able to see our presentation. And that was what it was really all about. So.
Okay, we'll move on.
But Dave, do you have any comments?
Oh, do I have any
or
comments?
observations about the day?
Just, given the weather, I was pleased with the turnout. Like everybody else said, the audience was really engaged, And with that weather forecast, people who came out weren't just there for the free lunch, they were there for information, so.
Yeah.
So, it was all really good.
Yeah, despite all the pre-planning we did, when you encounter the weather that we did, things kind of tend to fall apart, and I was quite pleased to see how flexible and adaptable everyone was, observing where they're needed and moving around or running around to make things happen. Put up another canopy for the food, so I was really proud of our group for that.
I would agree. The flexibility, things actually went more quickly than we had planned on. The speakers got through their material more quickly, and so it was great that the caterers were actually able to move up their activity. The folks with the rainfall simulator could do the same. So we didn't have people just sitting in chairs doing nothing, so it went, really well.
And we didn't need the simulation from the rainfall.
Yeah, they still ran it.
It was wonderful. It was, yeah. It was a good, event, and I really think that speeding it up is something we should think about next time. I think people
Doing
are
what?
speeding up the whole
Oh,
event
speeding up.
and just keeping it to a shorter, format. I think that works in general. People don't like sitting around for 4 hours, so I think that might be a good idea. Keep that in our plan.
Okay, Dave, back to,
Okay, now let's come back to, surface water grant planning. Of course, everybody remembers we got, surface water grant in 2021 for, water and lake testing in the watershed, and that grant funds that activity through December of 2023. So we don't need to worry about, renewing that activity yet. So we kind of got some, cursory advice from Scott Provost about there are planning grants out there. That's another category that we haven't really looked at too closely. So kind of with Scott's help, maybe we can, with some help from Rachel, we can look at how we can, take advantage of that opportunity. And then I think it's kind of important as we're, talking budget in a couple weeks too, that we review the 9 key element plan and see what other issues that are identified in the first three to 4 years of that plan that we might be seeking grant funding for. Yep. So what it boils down to is we'll be having some more, conversation with Scott, kind of give us some advice about how other folks use that planning grant and how we think it can apply to our situation.
so, Dave, help me, just refresh my memory, the submittal date then, for the grants is
November 1st.
November 1st. And so last year when we went through that process, do you recall, how long did it take us to really, flesh it out from start to finish?
We started around early September, like shortly after Labor Day, because of having to get at least a preliminary proposal to Scott again last year. I think it was about that same deadline, September 15th, 20th, somewhere in that time frame. And then kind of we hashed out the details from that point on until you know, so then we got it turned in like 2 days before the deadline.
Yeah, yeah, I know it required a lot of people to assist with it, and it was a lot of work, so. Anyway, I'm thinking about timing of it, because the meeting on the 17th, which I think is next week, Tuesday, is really about, trying to identify, what it might be, if we are to make a floor motion at the annual meeting, which is around Labor Day. What is it we would ask for? And, so we want to accomplish that on the 17th, and it sounds like we have about an hour, right, Rachel?
Yeah, we can extend that too, if people
Okay.
need that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what all of your schedules are, but we're starting at 9, and I know you had a 10 o'clock something, but it sounds like we could.
I had an in-person, all-colleague event, but we're now switching to virtual, so it's really no issue.
Oh, okay, great. So we got a little bit of time, but let's make sure that we, get a good start on that. The other thing I'd like to suggest then is, because September is coming right up, do we want to plan something for the following week, just to talk about grants in general?
We should probably kind of keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Okay. So do we want to try and pick a date for that today? If Tuesday is the 17th, and we're going to cover, really the Tri-Lakes, motion kind of planning, you want to give it a week after that, Tuesday, the 24th, would that be?
I think that sounds like a good date, if we can get, Mr. Provost to.
Yeah,
We'll-
yeah, we
let's-
might
let's
need
work on
him,
his
right?
schedule
Yeah.
if we need to.
Yeah, is Scott on the phone?
Provost is not, no.
Oh, he's not, okay. Well, I'll write myself a note to get hold of him. Is the 24th okay with everybody else here?
So far.
Yes.
It's early
So far.
morning,
Early morning?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean, Barb? Early?
8, 9.
Oh, okay.
need to leave by 10.
Okay, so we could do 8 to 10 on, 8/24, and we're gonna check with Scott.
Why don't we also leave Wednesday? Are you more available on Wednesday?
In the morning, yeah, anytime all morning,
Till when?
till 1 o'clock.
Okay, well, let's make both days. We'll give them an option. Tuesday or
Everybody else
Wednesday.
okay on Wednesday?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Have to look at the calendar.
Yeah.
So, and the 25th is the.
Don,
Yeah.
Trail Lakes meets on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have.
Oh,
till
let's shoot
1.
for Tuesday then.
Well, we can do it after the Tri-Lakes meeting, which would be, I don't know, it goes till 10:30 or 11.
Barb has an issue.
She has till 1. That's what she just said. So we can do it after the Tri-Lakes as well.
Jerry, I thought that was moved to the 26th.
Oh, you are correct. I just,
Okay. Well, then just-
Oh, okay. All right, let's see what Scott's, got available, maybe, either of those days, I'll let you. All right. Anything more about, grant planning, Dave?
No, well, just that we have the one grant for outreach, which is called, tell me again, Don. You have to tell me about 20 times.
Oh, which one, the
The
Foundation,
one that we
Legacy
did-
Foundation?
No, but
The
the one that we didn't get.
Oh,
The one that we
Catalyst,
just-
yeah,
Catalyst.
yeah.
We did just hear that,
Yeah, we got turned down on
There
that.
were over 70 applicants for their pot of money, so it was pretty stiff competition. We did not,
So it was good practice. And we have some, I guess, some material we can draw from for other, private grants. And it's another, consideration we have is we've been relying primarily on, government-based grants, but there are, well over 100, private, grants out there that focus on environmental causes. So, we need to look at those as well. Okay, so Rachel, do you want to lead us on a discussion on the bullets or the key points that came up Eric Olson's presentation?
I certainly can. I'll move this over, just pull this up slightly, just so my voice connects to that a little clearer. Everything is on the wall. I'll probably do it. Scott and Jerry, can you hear me all right?
yes,
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
All right. Back here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so we all can view. Okay, so if you recall, this was a document that we touched on last time. All right, so today what I'd like for us to do is we'll just kind of help re-familiarize ourselves with what we did last time. Just kind of scroll through these and check out what hard work we completed with assigning goals for each criteria area, and then as well as a couple of action items too. So really what we need to do today is finish up some of those action items. There are a few goals on here that don't yet have them. We'll be wrapping that up, and then we'll move on and do some priority setting. So as you can see here under the priority piece, next to our goals, we've got a green box. So we'll just go down the line, and as a group, we can kind of discuss, is this a high, medium, or low priority item? From there, we'll take our high priority items, and then we'll start to kind of talk about timelines and really adding to those action pieces, and hopefully walk away today with a little bit of homework, if you will, on really getting going on some of those. How's that sound?
Good.
Very good.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so starting at the top, we talked about membership being that nice base of our pyramid. We definitely want to work on that. We talked about multiple goals, one being developing a mechanism for regular mailing. The next being creating an Instagram to help our outreach with various audiences. And then the third is to seek out demographic data. Okay, I think that was our three for that. Yep. So for that first goal, we had started on some of our action items. We have applied to the communication grant opportunities. That's kind of an ongoing piece. That I understand that the Catalyst one didn't follow through, but there are, like Don was saying, many out there that we could look into. We also need to stockpile content and seek out more formal templates. So are we pretty satisfied with those action items, or are there things off the top of your head that you could think of that could be added to that? Oh, you think it's okay too, by the way?
You know what, it's tough for me.
Is it?
My as far as just an eyesight isn't as good as
No
me. That's
problem.
That's better.
That's
Okay.
much better.
So any more items for that first goal that you think are pertinent to get that achieved? As we dive into what we consider a high priority item, we will kind of start creating subsets of our action items. I just asked if there's anything glaring there that we're missing.
So, Rachel, are you asking us to identify a priority regarding that item as opposed to others?
We'll do that next. Right now, let's
Okay.
just look at our action items in each goal, and we'll just kind of fill in those blanks and make sure that we've got some good items there. So if we're all happy with what's under goal 1, then we can move on.
Well, I think maybe, I don't know, this is just something that I was thinking of when I was looking at the list. It's for regular mailing, so this is just stuff that we send out, right? It's not stuff that we can get together, people together, anything like this, Dave, or like, this is just getting stuff sent out, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's still it. Yeah, I don't really have anything.
Okay. My question to the group would be, do we currently have the mailing list needed to accomplish this goal? Do we have that on hand?
We do not. We have an electronic list of about 850 people. Probably, what, 2/3 of them are local within our Lakes group, I would say. We do not have actual mailing addresses for them. Yeah, we'd have to get them. I'm sure we can get them from Tri-Lakes would be a source, or could be our friends in Ag Community upstream.
Okay. Okay. Because we do intend for these mailings to be hard copy, correct?
Yeah, that would be, I think that's one of our long-term goals.
Okay. All right. Now, moving down to creating an Instagram. So where you have, when we have stockpiling content, so this would mostly include pictures, maybe short videos as well. And then familiarizing ourselves with the Instagram platform and understanding how to use it and how to optimize that as well.
I have an idea. Why don't all of us go to a class on it or something on it? Because it's not right for one person to have to deal with that big of a thing. So I think we should all be involved in that. At least we'll know how it works, even if everybody doesn't do it. But we'll know what the content needs to be and what format it needs to be in, all those kind of things. I think that would be really worthwhile.
Are you suggesting like an Instagram training class?
Yep. Yep.
Might be a YouTube video that you probably won't have to pay for.
What was that?
There might be a YouTube video that gives you like the basics of it.
Do you know a lot about Instagram?
We've had some training, yes, for utilizing social media for outreach. So if you'd like, I can put together like a 30-minute training,
That'd be great.
and we could all just get together on Zoom and just do that
That sounds
over
great.
lunch hour maybe.
Yep.
Does that sound good?
Yep.
Welcome to the
Dave, you can take pictures. Can't you? You can do that.
I can still contribute.
Yeah. I think that's what we need to sort out, is what each of us can do. Because we all can do it.
All right, I'll email them to you.
All right, so under creating Instagram, any other action items that you think need to be added there?
Well, we should kind of decide what our focus is going to be.
We'll call that our outreach strategy.
Okay.
That piece. And when we do that training, we can talk through that as well. We'll just kind of discuss what's our angle, what's our vibe, essentially, we're trying to put across. The things that really capture folks on social media platforms are the ones that are a little bit personal, so people can really relate, but also professional enough that, you know, it's an entity that they can follow. So finding that middle ground sometimes can take a little bit of tweaking and work over time. So, you know, you just kind of, you know, start with what you have and then we'll build on it through time. Okay. Anything else under that technical there? Hearing none. All right, so our third one here. So this one, we do not have any action items just yet. So the first goal here is seeking out demographic data.
So the notes on the right, that I guess didn't we put those notes in there?
We did,
Okay.
yes, these are some of our, posted, joint posted.
Got it.
That I had added in there. So we know that we have all these various audiences, right, in our watershed, but, you know, the big questions are, you know, how big are they? What are the details about them? How do they like to learn? You know, what can we do that helps, you know, your group reach these people, right, in a way that makes sense to them? So a couple of ways to learn this, to gather data. Number one would be a survey. You could do something like that. This can be done either mailing, electronic, or you can make a point to do it at the farmer's market, and it can be a long-term data collection process. And if you don't want to do like a one-shot survey where, you know, you send it out for a couple of weeks, you gather your data, and then you move on, it really would be up to the group, what you feel comfortable with doing.
Well, I like the idea of the farmer's market, but we can also go in, I guess, spread it to the frolic, which is coming up. So what would that entail? Kind of like taking a big board and then just doing hash marks of what people think is like important? I mean, those are the kind of things I guess I don't know.
Yeah, and that depends on what event you're at, right? So if you're at the farmer's market, you know, if you have a big whiteboard up that says, you know, how do you want to learn about us? You know, mailing, Instagram, you know, Facebook, whatever it is, and people go on, you know, maybe just make a dot or a star in those boxes with an expo marker. That works great, but you don't have an identifier for that individual.
Right.
So for a general public option, that's great if that's, you know, the route you would like to take, but you don't know if that person's a weekender. You don't know if that's a permanent resident. You know, you don't necessarily know if that's youth or if that's, you know, over 65 age, or, you know what I'm saying? So as an ongoing learning tool, I think that's a good thing to include at the farmer's market, is little pieces to learn about the public. But if you want to grasp harder data, then I would consider more of a formal approach so you can have those identifiers.
So like a mailing with a survey.
You could do that, yes. And I think Tri-Lakes could serve as a good partner in that as well.
I have a question about that. I attended Adams County Lake Alliance meeting. Anna, you might have been there through Watermelon. And Phil, you might have been a part of that too. And he talked about groups who got state funding grants, which reminded me of what we did. Typically, they are contacted by his group. He works with the DNR about surveys. And I'm not sure, have we ever been contacted? You know, Dave?
Not up to this point.
I think it might be worth looking at, because they actually have a group within the state who focuses on doing surveys. And, surveys related to watershed groups like we are. And, so I think it's worth, talking with maybe Scott first and then, with, Drew to see if that might be a possibility.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put that as an action item. I'll say seek input from DNR staff. What was it, DREUS? Oh, you knew that. That's how we spell it wrong. Yeah, cool way to spell it, I like that. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's how he spells it.
All right. Well, I think that's a wonderful starting point, is to gather some information. And if that's all we want to do right now, again, like you were saying earlier about the Google Docs, this itself is a living document. So, you know, like today, we're gonna assign some high priority items. Doesn't mean everything's gonna get an assignment today. Not everything's gonna end up with a timeline today, right? We'll get to that as we move along, as it becomes more important.
Let me ask you this, Rachel, is there any like, I guess, governmental entity that gathers demographics for different areas? I know we couldn't just, you know, get our area for the watershed because it's, you know, 4 different counties. But it might be a way to just get some idea, you know, of what the age range of the people in the area are and, you know, their income levels and just those kind of things.
Yeah.
Census data, right, which is, I think it was done 2020.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that would be appropriate or applicable to what we're doing here.
Certainly
I
could
think
be.
it is accessible because I remember, Wayne Johnson and I were part of that long-term planning committee in Adams County. And one of the things they did is they, reviewed demographics. And, one of the things I recall is they talked about the average age. The average age of people here in Rome is like 62 years old, which is much older than cities. But they also talked about, the number of full-time residents, as opposed to, none. So that might be a starting point. Find out about Adams County demographics info.
Don?
Yeah.
That information is available through Adams County Development Corporation and also North Central Wisconsin Development Corporation. It's being updated in the Adams County right now after the census. So it is available through Adams County.
Jerry, oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, don't we want to include, or do we not? Do we only want to include Adams County? Are we not going to use any of the other counties in the website?
There are several website opportunities as well that I can share with the group, that we use an extension for,
Okay.
looking at census stuff for a very specific area. So.
North Central Economic Development has it by county. And they would have Portage, Wood, Washara.
So that goal, I'm seeing, you know, we're just kind of collecting information right now for that one. I don't know until we have that info, if we can really make further action items, unless others see otherwise.
I think that's important to know who our audience is
Mhm.
and how to reach them. I mean, if they're older, they're not going to be on social media as much. Yeah, it won't be on Instagram, that's for darn sure.
I don't know, maybe.
Well, if the kids are on it,
Kids,
they'll be on it.
Well, and
Kids drive it.
we need to focus on youth as well, so we do very good.
And as we get into the social media bit, I mean, campaigning is something that we can talk about down the road. That could be a way where you use youth to bring in the older community. All right, so moving on to organizational growth. So our first goal here is bring in young business owners. So we've got a couple of action items there. First is consider new meeting times to make, this space more inclusive of young working professionals, most of which probably don't end their day till closer to 5 p.m. or so. So that's one of them. And another is to develop a formal ask for volunteers. Another to discuss ideas for a social event. So right off the bat, anything glaring that needs to be added to this list.
Well, I think we need to find out which business owners are more likely to get involved. I mean, we need to, I guess, eliminate the ones that aren't gonna work and work with the ones that will work. So, I guess target the right businesses.
Do we, kind of with the last topic, do we have access to a list of local businesses and concepts?
Well, we could go to there's a, what is it called, Chamber of Commerce for Adams County, and I worked with the lady for the, farmer's market, so there is a chamber.
Who plans the events at the gazebo, when they have like, business card sharing, things like that? Is there like a formal group of business people in Rome already?
A networking group?
There,
Like a
there is.
networking group?
Like a
Yeah,
small-
yeah, a networking group, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, like a small business owners
Right,
association.
like a networking, any kind of a small business network.
Would the chamber be the person to ask or the group to ask on
I
that?
would think so. I mean, if anybody in the audience knows Bob or Gary or, let us know. Do you know of any?
I'm sorry, myself?
Yeah, do you know of any,
You
network groups?
know, from my end, not really, because with my business, it's really done, as a rep group in the steel industry. As for small businesses here, some of the restaurants may be involved in a small, association. But really, we're limited in, really physical businesses here alone, So, I don't know if that would really be, an avenue for us to address at this point.
Good point.
I think that, I guess this would be pre-COVID, when I met with the business owner group here in Rome. Mike from DCM, was the chairman of the group at the time. I'm not sure if he still is, but that might be a starting point. I know that Lori Pitzel was part of it, the local realtors were part of it. As I say, maybe we start there.
Is it Mike from where?
Oh, from DCM. I think is his name Irwin? Or
Yes.
Yes,
somebody?
Irwin,
Yeah,
yeah.
Irwin, yeah.
Like Stephen Winslow?
IR.
Yeah,
I heard do it.
That's a great idea. All right, and then when it comes to the formal ask, just to kind of refresh my memory, was that something we wanted to do as like an in-person type thing? Is that like a card or like a postcard we wanted to put together to submit to these places of business? Trying to remember our thinking behind that one.
I'm not sure. What is the category is organizational growth? It could be that our formal ask is through a newsletter or some other means that we have currently of communicating. Because we do have a lot of people on our list, probably 850, maybe 500 of them are local folks. And we have not recently done a formal ask for volunteers. I think what we just experienced with our State of Our Lakes event, we found that we're kind of short-staffed and we could use some younger people probably. So, and taller people.
Younger people,
Yeah.
it's younger people. The youth.
So, does that sound familiar? Does that sound like what we're talking about in terms of a formal ask?
That does, yeah. And another thing that came to mind was we had a short discussion on next goal here, on organizational development, seek out additional perspectives for board members. Okay. So our action items were flush out board meetings and then consider a new meeting time, which looks like we've got that double listed. But not to say that two action items is not, there's multiple goals. To me, I see this goal as something that is, something to always keep in your mind and kind of an ongoing piece. That as other things like getting young business owners involved, et cetera, will kind of form on its own.
Well, I remember the last discussion we had about this, and our meetings are, I think they're more for us than it is for the community. And I think somebody stated that the last time we got together, is that, you know, we conduct our business, but we don't really do anything to attract, outside people or, people who might live here. So maybe what we ought to consider is one of our meetings should be more of a social event. You know, a quarter barrel or something like that at the gazebo. Maybe even a little bit of live music, like with Mike Clark or something like that, and make it a social event that helps us to sell, involvement with the 14 Mile Watershed Alliance and how it benefits them. And, people might be more prone to come to something like that, because this is, in effect, this is a business meeting that we're conducting and not social. Well, how does everybody else feel about that?
I think we definitely need to make it more social because nobody likes a business meeting. And I'm not saying that against any of us, but nobody wants to come to a business meeting. I don't want to go to a business meeting. So, basically, if we can make it more attractive and make it something that people would want to enjoy instead of, having to sit through, I think that's always a good idea. I think we should always go that direction with everything we do, including our meetings. It'd be nice if it wasn't COVID and we could sit around a table. I think that would make it more accessible. Those are the things I think that draw people in as opposed to keeping people away.
Well, and how much do they learn about you guys as a group from a business meeting? What you do, what your goals are, what your mission is?
Not
They
much.
don't.
No, they what they would learn is that week what we were talking about, which is not those things. Very good point. So yeah, I think we should structure it differently and do I like that idea. I think we should do a social event. That's fun.
Right now, the group has monthly meetings, right, monthly business meetings.
Right.
Do we want to try to do every other as a more social opportunity, or kind of put in a little bit of a structure? That's just an example.
I'm all for it. I mean, every other or every 3 meetings, whatever, I think we need to figure out what we're doing. I mean, it's going to take a bit of work, like anything. Yeah. So, but I think once we do it, I think it's a good idea. I think it really will. And also it differentiates us. So now we're not a Trend Lakes meeting or a Town of Rome meeting. We are a very different social meeting that people will hopefully want to come to. And that, I have to say, the thing I always remember is when I was young, they had this focus group for the park that was close to my house, and I went to it, and they captured me, and I became this huge volunteer and did all this work, tons and tons of work. So I think that's always a good idea, is to get people in, to tell them, we're going to work on cleaning the water. Make it something people are really excited about and get them to come. And maybe not even use the term meeting, is more just like, we want to hear what you want, what you're interested in.
I think the challenge might be to, we'll have to be clever about how we attract people to this.
Right.
And that will, as you say, it will take some work, but,
It will.
an evening, picnic with food and
There you go.
music and so forth.
Yeah.
Kids invited even,
Yeah.
And it could even be a potluck, so everybody kind of
Bring
contributes and
something.
feels, part of it
I love
already.
that. Yeah, I love that.
Earlier, when we're talking about the state of the lakes and, making it more abbreviated, maybe this came up in discussion with somebody, but, like a coffee bar, coffee and donuts kind of thing. And maybe we could apply that to some kind of a weekend event. Because the hardest, I think one of our hardest challenges is to really get in touch with weekend folks. People who live here are, and a lot of them are in our age group. And I think the hardest group to really contact are those who are here only on weekends. And so maybe a Sunday morning kind of thing where you get a coffee bar going, or set up shop maybe at the transfer site. That's where they all end up on early Sunday afternoon. I mean, just a kind of a ridiculous thought, but something on a weekend like that where I don't know what it would cost to do a coffee bar. But
Very little.
yeah, probably not a lot of money, right, compared to doing the event. But that's a thought.
And Don, I don't think that's a ridiculous idea to do it as like a ramp area where a lot of people congregate anyway, right?
That's a great, that's what we need
And
to do.
the morning event on the weekend for, the weekenders might appeal to them more as for just a couple hours, and then they have the rest of the weekend to be on the lakes.
Yeah, exactly, because they really can't be on the lake until 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Due to the water skiing or jet skiing, whatever they want to do. So if you catch them early and they get a free snack and a cup of coffee out of it or orange juice, I think that's great.
Didn't Sherwood used to have like a dump room Saturday and they have like
That's right.
coffee and stuff out?
Or did they?
Well, it was more
Was
of
that
a
well attended?
Bloody Mary deal.
Okay.
Bloody
all
Mary.
right.
Yeah, that's going a little too far.
That's right, we don't want them snackered after they meet with us. One thing I'd like to bring up, and I just got back into town, and I wanted to share this, and I wanted to be at the meeting too, on the great work you're all doing on these action items and how you want to deliver results. I don't know how many of you had a chance to look at the bays currently, on Camelot or in some of the areas, but if you look, it's loaded with milfoil right now. That has popped up because of the heat. And as we know, the nitrates, that are affected through the runoff with a lot of fertilized lawns. And it's going to be stagnant there because the lake water is constantly moving back and forth, but it lays into the bay. I must have been probably hit by at least 4 or 5 neighbors. Gary, what are we going to do about this? Gary, what's going on? What's happening here? Now, we have had so much great information, and in the past meetings I've been involved with, in the action areas that we want to do. But if we're going to do social events like this, which I think is a great idea, we should focus, basically on an area that is evident for that period of time, like we're talking about the bays and, what can be done. Because people will read information, but they look at that and they say, what's going on? I thought you people are taking action, the watershed and so forth. They don't understand the whole process. And I think if we did something like this, you would gain their attention and really try to put together some really good ideas of what they need to do to help work with us, to help prevent these type of issues. So, there's a lot of things up there that we talk about, but I think we need to segment them during the course of the year. Maybe do a social event to talk about, that area.
Well, to that point, I think that we should definitely ask them. I'm a big believer. We shouldn't decide what we're going to
That's
do.
true,
As a group.
absolutely.
I think we're representing other people. We have more knowledge. There's no doubt about it. But we want to know where they're starting from. So what do they know? What are their expectations of us? All those kind of things. I think that is imperative. What do you think, Rachel? I think that's imperative to know what their expectations are from our
Yeah,
group.
I mean, it's always good to get public input,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I definitely hear you as well with the immediate problems that people have right in their backyard.
Right.
Um,
And that's going to be if anything, if you want to target areas like with the weekenders, as you're talking about, those that are just coming up, that are seasonal, they're the ones that are concerned too, because, they're the ones that bring this up because they're not going to absorb all this. You can spend a lot of money sending out a lot of information. It's going to sit in the mailbox till they get there. And unfortunately, unless there are bills or some that they see of interest, it's gonna go right in file 13. So, you know, I think we need more of a target focus, and you're right. I think social events do draw more action and interaction and listening, Karen, as you said, to what their concerns are.
I think listening is important. I think we all need, I mean, one of the things I've enjoyed with the booth, our farmers market booth, I think we've all experienced this, is we hear from the, I hate to use the word constituents, the lake property owners or all the people in the area, what is wrong. You know, they're very nice about it. Nobody's mean and nobody's been, you know, angry about it. They just really want to know, you know, what we're gonna do, but they also want to tell us all the problems.
Right.
Like, I know exactly where all the worst problems on all the lakes are, because I've been going to the booth a lot. They're very vocal. They will tell you.
And to add to that, it's not just about gathering people's problems, but also empowering them to do something about it themselves, right?
Exactly.
So if we could, you know, for example, if you wanted to do an event where you had someone from DNR come and talk about invasive species control, this is the kind of stuff that you can use to get the stuff away from your dock, you know, mechanical rakes or whatever people need to get. Here's some local businesses that will help do it for you. Here's a way to identify them. You know, here is the type of fertilizer that I suggest. It doesn't have phosphorus, that, you know, is slow release or whatever people, you know, so they stop using, you know, heavy amounts of quick release N or, you know, whatever shifts we're trying to make here. You know, these are the species of natives that we suggest you plant. Here's an example seed mix. You know, having those things there so they can physically touch them means a lot, especially if they have a coffee and a donut in their hands as well.
Because it brings it home personally to them, to what's important to them, and gives them ideas of things that they can do. All of a sudden, they're going to feel more involved in the process themselves rather than saying, well, that group over there is supposed to take care of it, but nothing's happening.
And the ramps where people can put in and take out their boats, honestly, would be a really great venue for something like that. Good parking.
I have a question that's generally related to what Gary said, and it's interesting that I'm part of the Adams County Lake Alliance, and so with Anna, I attend most of their meetings, and there are a lot of lakes in the southern part of the state the county, who have problems with Eurasian milfoil. I mean, where they've sent divers down to pluck it out. Honestly, I've never heard a discussion on our tri-lakes about milfoil. And when you brought that up, Gary, I was surprised by it because I don't think I see any in the bay where I live. And so I wanted to ask that question. Bob, you're part of tri-lakes. Jerry's on the phone as well. He's part of tri-lakes. Are we having a lot of issues with Eurasian milfoil?
You haven't heard anything.
But what I remember from when I worked there is that we've always had some milfoil in the lakes, and there's actually two kinds. There's a native milfoil,
Right.
and then there's the invasive one. And we do have some of the invasive, but in some lakes it just completely takes over, and other lakes it just stays in balance. And it seems to have been in different surveys that they've done over the years in balance on our lakes.
Well, and you gotta think about it, some of the lakes down that do have a big problem with milfoil in the southern part of the county, they're not running weed harvesters like you guys are. And there may be, I mean, your guys' lakes are fairly shallow, but I
Correct.
mean, they're more shallow and they're more sedimented, and so when they see milfoil, they see milfoil like it's mats and mats and mats. So, I mean, there is 3 species now, because the native and the hybrid are hybrid, or the native and the invasive are hybridizing. So, I mean, maybe you're not seeing it because the weed harvesters are keeping up on what would be noticeable near you, but
Let me ask you this, do they do studies every so often, just to, you know, the DNR and the county, just to find out what's in the lake? Does
oh,
somebody do
yeah,
that?
yeah, so they have, so at the county level, I do them, and then the DNR does them as well, but just aquatic vegetation surveys.
Okay.
So then we go out and each lake has a kind of a grid laid over it with a certain amount of points based on the acreage and the shoreline mileage or, you know, surface area of the water, and then you throw a rake and pull it up and count every species that's on there, and you document it. And so, yeah, it's well documented what species are in the lakes, and it doesn't happen every year just because there's not the resources to get to every lake year, but
You know, I'm working with, the high school kids, that we're gonna try to get them involved in helping with us. Is that something that would be a good thing for them to do? To like,
yeah, it would be easy for them to do if they wanted to do it as just like a project.
yeah,
Or if, they wanted to come out to a lake one day and throw a rake or something like that, yeah, it'd be easy to do. I mean, I can't take them out on the boat, but,
no.
from the shore if we get a good area.
And one more question about that, and, because I don't remember what was in the 9 gallon plan regarding it, but is that a part of the 9 gallon plan, aeration, milfoil?
It should be any of the invasive species work, and, I mean, technically it could be considered as water protection. So, yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I was trying to
part of it,
recall
but
if
yeah.
it's in it, I don't remember, honestly, I don't remember all of the milestones, but,
Right.
I'm not sure I came across that.
I think it should be able to, I don't know if it's a milestone within itself, but it's probably a part of a milestone. So,
But I think the point that Carrie makes is really good, is that we need to find out what people, at the time when we have the meeting, we need to address the problems that people have then. So,
I'm gonna go over to the lake later today, and I'm gonna take pictures. So I want you to see how, invasive it has become. And Barb's point is well taken, because last year it was not that evident. If you have a cooler summer and you don't have the hot heat hitting, you're not gonna have it as readily as exposed as it is. But, I remember just 3 years ago, it looked like green pea soup in the bays, a couple of them. And I don't know, Don, if you have that much of an issue, but I can tell you, on Leeds Court where I'm at, I'm almost by the point, you can see it in the whole area.
you're
And-
at Camelot?
Yes, I'm
Or
over in
Camelot.
Camelot, yes.
Because Camelot is the better of the three lakes, correct? It's like the least, well, if you look at DNR,
No, I think Camelot has a bigger problem, if I'm not mistaken.
no, I'm talking about in general.
Oh,
the
you
type
mean
of water
by
and
size?
the water, like the eutrophication and all that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, the DNR, actually, they have not classified Camelot as an impaired water body.
Right.
yeah.
They have the other 2 lakes
Right.
in Petenwell. But what I'm told, and this is anecdotal, is that, Camelot has the same issues, to the same degree as, Sherwood and Arrowhead have.
Right, and all it takes is looking at the water quality data that
Yeah.
Bill, the CLM and the Citizens Lake monitors
Right.
gather, and then just comparing those throughout the year from the 3 lakes. There's sample sites on all 3 lakes. I mean, that kind of just.
There's
speaks
not
for
a
itself.
substantial difference that I see, except possibly, North Camelot generally is a little better than Lower Camelot.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Upper, right, upper, yeah, upper is a little better overall.
Yeah.
Now, does it look like pea soup now?
No,
Okay.
but it's pretty evident, around everyone's both of, when we talk about the harvester, when I was gone, I got a call from Tri-Lakes because they were trying to clean it up so well that they inadvertently went into the platform of my boat and did a little damage, but they were very honest about it. I said, that's fine, we'll get it taken care of.
Oh, my
So,
God.
but it was on a lift, so it's not that it was laying in the water or anything. I have a lift with the canopy and so forth, but anyway, things happen.
Well, I think with those invasive, it's important to be mindful that there is a native there that grows in with the invasive. And so when it does get so close to shore, it's almost, you have to take the time to educate yourself on how to identify the invasive from the native, and then be able to, and willing to manually pull it.
Pull it,
Because
right.
there's really no other treatment that differentiates between the two,
So given that this is a shallow growing plant, is it something that?
Well, not necessarily always shallow growing, it'll grow anywhere, depending on how deep the sunlight is reaching within the water column.
Could any of us see this as the potential for an outreach event? Could we have maybe like a kayak canoe kind of thing where we all come out and, we have a couple DNR folks, we have folks like you come out and you can learn about species and kind of how to remove it as well.
I did an event at Parker Lake in the southern part of the county, and we just did it from shore. And I've got all the resources, big blow up pictures on how how to identify it. You know, they created, collection bags, which were super easy. The Lake Association paid for them. And then, I mean, I had like 15 people show up, which for that lake is pretty good. And then everybody wore swim trunks or a bathing suit and waded out and spent an hour pulling invasive weeds, and we got one shoreline done.
That's pretty good. You know, I think, I'll be honest with you, I don't know milfoil from any of the other ones. So I wouldn't know if I had them, if, you know, you threw one in my face. I have no idea. And I've been through classes with invasives where I've actually gone through all of them. There's just so many of them out there. It's really hard to keep up with it. That's something we could probably, you know, educate the public on, is what is an invasive? What is a good one?
You know, we have neighbors that are pulling weeds every weekend that they're up there. The only problem is you just explained, unless you're really getting down to the root base in that. You know, so many of them are just taking them off the surface water and doing it. But by the next weekend, they're back again. So, you know, it really is an issue. It's a concern. And it magnifies itself because people think, you know, they listen to the watershed process and how we all play a part in this with the ag growers and that, but what they're concerned about is when they come up to their lake homes, if they're seasonal, what's going on? Can I allow my dog in there? Can I allow my children or grandchildren to swim in it? You know, they don't know the difference between that and blue-green algae concerns.
And that's a big thing that I get at the booth. People don't know what blue-green algae is.
Where do you send them, Karen?
What?
If they don't know what blue-green algae is, or where to
I've
find
got the
information?
cards from, somebody at the DNR that
Okay.
shows harmful and non-harmful.
Okay.
So I don't do anything, and then there's a whole sheet about how to identify it. So I have two things from the Wisconsin DNR. I forget who sent it to me, but
Right.
I mean, these are from them. So, yeah, I don't try to, you know, go to.
No,
the-
yeah.
I can't do that.
No, but if they have questions at a county level, I mean, I do the same stuff Scott does, so you can send them my way. If it
Really?
comes to a plant, yeah, if it comes to a plant or
Okay,
something,
thank you.
yeah. Because I have more ability to get out to these places and to be able to identify them in person.
And do you have business cards?
Yes, but not with me. Yeah, I will. I will.
How do we
I
want
make
you to
a-
visit us on Leeds Court?
I wonder if I can make a suggestion about this. First off, the reason I asked about the Nike helmet plan, I don't recall seeing it in the plan, but I don't have the plan memorized in terms of milestones.
Well, I don't either, Don.
Yeah.
so.
I want to make sure that, not to pass the buck, but, you know, the weed cutting authority here is Tri-Lakes, is not really our group. And so I think if it turns out that that responsibility is really within Tri-Lakes, I think we need to bring Tri-Lakes into that discussion. Because if we have, excuse me, if we have a problem with milfoil, then somebody needs to begin educating people. Let's make sure, you know, if it's our responsibility to do it, because when you look at our mission statement, we're totally tied into the Nike Helmet plan. So, and Bob or Jerry.
You know,
in
I'm wondering,
terms
this
of Tri-Lakes-
consulting group we have now for Dry Lake,
Yeah,
if that would be a project for this,
maybe, yeah.
can you bring it up at our next meeting?
I think that's a great idea, Bob. Because they're looking at sediment, they can look at this then too. They're gonna go into the lake. So maybe that would be something.
Well, and with the weed harvesters too, a lot of the areas that the milfoil might be growing in is areas where harvesters are not allowed. So that's where you have to focus on educating.
Well,
Because they have to be
Public.
30 feet up,
Right.
so they're not coming in at all.
And they can only come in so close to begin with, you know, that's exactly right.
Right,
They're not gonna be able to
Right.
get the real issues out there.
right.
So Bob or Jerry, I think Jerry's still on the call, but could I suggest that maybe that is brought up at a future Tri-Lakes meeting?
I'll make sure it's on the agenda, it's on our next meeting agenda. Which
Thank
is on
you.
the 20th, they moved that out a week. So it may be a project for this consulting group.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we?
Thanks, Jerry, for bringing that up.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
a
not
really
aware.
good point, really good point.
As we get down to the program section, we can jot a few things in on that. All right, so, moving back to our action items here, we've got just a couple more to get through, and then we'll assign priority, and I think, given our time, we'll probably it there for today. We'll get our high priorities set. And then next time we can start discussing, you know, really diving in and getting stuff done. That sound good?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so goal number 3, planning social events for members. So that kind of goes along with, you know, making these business meetings more community gatherings. But, you know, you also have to remember to make time for that, right? So, you know, does anyone have thoughts or ideas for, you know, building that sense of self just within this close-knit group?
I had an idea. I don't know if, I think I discussed it with you when we got together for lunch. I was thinking that since I don't get the opportunity to go in any of the other lakes, like I pretty much stay on Lake Sherwood, it would be great if we had a function where we all got together on all 3 lakes and then was able to, you know, tour the lake. Because that's always a fun thing to do with your guests. You know, you go around the lake and you talk about the lake as you're traveling in your pontoon or whatever. So I would like to do something like that. And then we can actually like know what we're working with. You know, actually having been there.
It's a great idea.
It
I
is
like
like
it.
Yeah.
So we probably couldn't do all 3 in one night, but.
No. Can you imagine that? That would take us hours and hours. And if we threw in drink, we'd all be drunk.
Yeah. But that would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, I would be totally willing to do the Lake Sherwood one. I mean, unless you want to do it, Dave, but I have a boat that could, you know, comfortably do, you know, 10 people. So I don't have a pontoon. I'm sorry. I don't have a pontoon. Do you have a pontoon?
Do maybe like, you know, 1 per month,
That'd be great.
something, or if it's cold.
I'm sorry, Rachel, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, doing maybe like 1 per month, you know, maybe a Sunday afternoon or a time that works for everybody, just go putz around, you know, have a coffee or whatever it is.
Anytime after ice out.
What's that?
Anytime after ice out.
Yeah.
So,
It's
just
really
make
kind
sure,
of cold.
Maybe June, July, August.
if I want to make sure I understand the category. I think it says, plan social events for members. Is that strictly our existing members, like those of us here, or to increase members?
So right now we're under organizational development, and there's 2 sides to that, right? There's, you know, your following that you want to reach out to, which we kind of talked a little bit earlier about, holding meetings at, you know, a park with a potluck or a place where we could have music. You know, that's kind of more of a general public type atmosphere. But a really critical part of organizational development is just building those bonds between like the board. You know, making sure that you guys remain a friendship, you remain a cohesive group. You know, that's really important. And so to take the time to just enjoy the camaraderie, I think is a very needed thing. And your group will grow, right? It's going to happen. So, you know, sort of cherish that time now.
Well, this is a good time to do the tours of the lake, because, you know, obviously if you had 20, 30 people, you couldn't do the tours of the lake.
Well, then, I think I want to revisit, the overall attracting people. And, what I want to bring up is something that Packers did, that was very successful for them. And they did something called Pontoons and Politics. And I think Green Lake and some other groups have done something very similar. And where they tried to attract their agriculture community by doing pontoon roads, rides around the lake, so that, you know, we've gone up into the, into our ag communities, some of us to attend some of their events, but we haven't really done anything, to attract them to say, you know, here's what our lakes are about. And, when Packers did it, it was really successful. And I think it's something, in some fashion that we ought to really consider.
So modeling an event after their pontoons and politics.
That's what they called it at Packers. It was a pretty cool name for it. They invited a lot of, ag people, but also they invited politicians, and hence the need.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't need to invite politicians, although we could, but I say maybe that's something we can do. Other lake groups besides Packers, like Green Lake and some of the others, have done that, and, it's been beneficial for them. So,
Now, you
something
might,
we should think of.
you might be able to include politics if you do it at a local level. Because
Right.
say Paul Piccolini is already on, attending the meetings, Jody Shapey, she could attend the meetings, there might be some local
Right.
elected
Town board.
officials, town board,
Absolutely.
county board, that might be interested, and then, who knows? Maybe there's membership there too, so.
So I'm gonna actually add this as a goal under our, building relationships bucket. So we'll say develop a one-two outreach event for community members. Actually, go ahead and say watershed members. Now, just to gauge, is that something that you're kind of thinking for like next summer we'll worry about?
Yeah, I really think if we're looking at attracting the upstream ag people, they're beginning to approach a very busy time for them, like harvest time. So I think it would be really hard to get their attention. And unfortunately, their slack time, would be like after fall, as, as Dave says, after icing. But that's not a good time unless they like ice fishing. But there is a time of year that's earlier, and I remember when talking with, Tamas Houlihan and, Tom Lochner from Wisconsin Cranberries, he said that, a July, August timeframe is usually, slack period for cranberry growers. So something we might want to keep in mind for next year.
That's usually kind of a,
Yeah, we had decent luck during July and the early part of August with even the vegetable producers as well.
yeah, as long as we're not bothering, post-emergence application or anything
Right.
like that.
And I don't think we got any, not at all.
Well, let's ask the question of guys like Lochner and Houlihan, say, what would be a good time for us to do this?
Or even reaching out to the producers themselves as well, because Tom Lochner and Tamas Houlihan do know a lot of these
Yeah,
people, but they're not on the day-to-day operations, which you're actually targeting the producers who are on the day-to-day operations. So if it's
Reach out to Jeremy maybe.
reach out to Jeremy, reach out to, anybody that you can contact that is a producer and say, hey, this is what we want to do, what time works best for you? And then that's showing them that you're taking the initiative to work with them and around their schedule.
And maybe Greg Sager for the cranberry people.
And a lot of these vegetable producers, they might have multiple operations going on, cash crops and vegetables and, yeah, a bunch of different stuff, so.
Well, I think our hardest thing in that, Anna, is we don't know who. Like, if you knew people that we might want to invite, that would be really wonderful.
Yep. I haven't done much in the 14-mile watershed just because I've been so focused on the big Rose Hickory and Little Rose Hickory, but yeah, I'll look.
I wonder if Evan would have.
maybe, maybe some of that becomes evident, next year when we launch the 9 kilometer plan, right?
Right.
With the new
Right.
resource. Because we really don't know a lot of people up in our own watershed. And it was Tamas who put us in contact with, Jeremy Pavelski, who some of us knew, but it was really Tamas who organized that. And so maybe it starts with them, because honestly, and I think as Karen and others have said, we just don't know a lot of our partners who are upstream. So we want to change that, and it's got to start somewhere. So maybe it starts with
Now, will
our
Colton be
organization.
in charge of that? I mean, because he's taken over Taylor's,
Of what?
is that part of what he does? I don't know what.
What do you mean, as of, like, reaching out to people?
Yeah.
I don't think, no, I
What
don't,
his side
and,
is.
well, Scott and I have discussed it, and with the new position we're getting though, I forgot even about that, but
Yeah.
that's gonna be a big part of their position. So what I'm gonna do is work with them, train them up a little in what I've done already, and then work alongside them to reach out to producers and get them in contact with producers and So I think it's, I don't necessarily know how much Colton will be
Okay.
in that, but I mean, he's welcome to.
Well,
for
so,
sure.
did they hire somebody?
No,
Okay.
no, it's not.
I
been
keep
posted yet.
I am
I think-
hoping.
Yeah, the last we heard is, probably October. Is that what you're hearing too, Anna?
Mhm.
I wish we could do something to inspire them. I really want that position filled. I'm sure we all do.
Okay, so, sorry about that departure.
Oh, that's all right. That's a very good addition. All right, so, backing up just a tad here, under relationship building. So one of our goals is to attend wildlife and fisheries meetings. To do that, we certainly need to develop a list of who would be in this area, who are those contact people. And then invite those representatives to meetings, and then develop an appeal to those folks for something what we talked about with, ongoing partnerships. And how we can kind of help each other towards common missions. Anything glaring that needs to be added as an action item for that goal?
So you should maybe write down what, like, Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, so then you kind of know. Even maybe backcountry hunters and anglers, because I know there's a huge group.
And they do
They do
local
have a
chapter
group,
here.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Anna, but I couldn't hear.
Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants
Right.
Forever, Trout Unlimited, then there's backcountry hunters and anglers, there's a lot of different groups too.
You said backcountry hunters and anglers.
Yep.
We do have a Pheasants Forever chapter here?
I'm not sure, but it's an option. There's a lot of
Pheasants.
Actually, there are in parts of the county.
Are there?
Yeah, there's some pheasants, so there might be a small chapter for something that's doing absolutely.
All right. Any others you can think of, Anna?
Did you get Ducks Unlimited?
Oh, Ducks Unlimited.
Maybe the waterfowl.
Well,
The River Alliance, is that the one?
yeah, we do have a relationship with, Mike Taboris, through their Clean Water Action Group, I think it is. I was gonna throw out the Wisconsin Trap Shooters who have their state facility right here in Rome. I would think they have a lot of, contacts within the waterfowl hunters and others who would use shot shooters.
Wonderful. Yeah, that'd be a great person to reach
Over in
out
the
to.
courthouse? Okay, all right. Yeah, if you could, great.
Well, it's kind of just a matter of making some phone calls and
Answers.
chatting with folks to get some more information. Okay. And then the next one is make a point to attend local agricultural events. So our idea there was to develop a calendar of local events, but the issue with that is, someone would have to update it. So if, that still sounds like a good idea, we can keep it, or, we could also just make a conscious effort to, include those lists on our kind of outreach sphere that we already have. And I think, Dawn, you were already doing a wonderful job of that. Like, I saw you share the Epic event that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. Is anyone planning to go to that?
I'm sorry.
The Epic, the Old Plains
Right,
Partnership
yeah.
event? Is anyone planning to go to that one? I'll be there.
I guess we're going. Part of, COVID, I think, kind of, threw us off a little bit. And, it used to be that Bob and John, when he was a part of it, and Dave, attended some, and I attended a number of them. And I think we just kind of, with COVID, we fell out of the habit of doing that. And somehow we need to get a little bit of momentum again. I didn't, unfortunately, there's just so few of us that, it kind of falls on just a couple of people to do it. And, that's part of this whole expansion thing is we need more people to do outreach.
Maybe that's, I know Packers go to a lot of those events, if it's something to where you guys attend it together, and then can spread the good word of Adams County together,
Well, Scott's on the call. Scott
Oh, yeah.
started going.
Oh, Scott has
Huh?
But he did say kudos to a wonderful event on Saturday before he left.
Oh, that's really nice. But he's really good at going to all the meetings in the area. I mean, he
He is.
really does keep up.
Yeah, like what
He
with
was good.
Rick George said, I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of farmers know those two because they do go.
They do.
Yeah, and they don't make a big, hey, we're here from a lake group. They just kind of sit in the back and sit down with the new person every chance they get, and yeah, and that's really all it takes. And then you and your face becomes that partnership, that connection to the lakes people. You become that person, and that's a decision that each one of you have to make. Do you want to be that avenue? So that's up to you individually, but. Yeah, I really can't support it enough going to the field.
Let me
day
ask
is a
the
wonderful
question
thing.
because, we do send around announcements for some of these, farmer, gatherings. Who else in our group is willing to do that? Is anybody else interested in attending some of those functions?
From time to time, I guess, time permitting.
Who else?
Yeah, time permitting.
You know, Don, the biggest problem I have is because I work,
Oh, I
during the day, right? But if they're evenings, or if it's on a weekend, I can certainly, work it in.
Typically they are not. They'll be like a morning or an afternoon
Right.
session, and normally they're out of town. I mean, some we've gone up to Medford, other places for. And, our problem right now is that we are such a small group that we need more people involved. I think there are people who are probably interested in it. And so I think our charter should be, got to reach those people. And, it shouldn't be just one or two of us who are always the ones going to those events. So that's the whole reason for Eric coming and us going through these is how do we build our capacity? So we've got more people doing it. It's kind of a catch-22 in that regard, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's probably.
Okay,
one of
thanks.
the-
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. That's one of the ones that I think we should do it, but I think, we can't commit to anything really firm because of the size of our group at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as things go along, Don's always wonderful about sharing events. If something does spark your interest, 9 out of 10 times, I'm already going anyway. So if you ever want someone to go with, feel free to shoot me an email.
Yeah, that's a good invite right there, because I'd be more likely to go because I'm directionally challenged. So I would never been to the place.
So, am I thinking the date is the 13th, or
I have to double check that, but
I've been
you're right.
having trouble with dates recently, but somehow the 13th came to mind when you mentioned that.
Don will take your word for it. I live and die by my calendar.
You'll miss an appointment somewhere.
Oh, good deal. All right. Okay, so moving on to our programs here. So our first one is develop a relationship with our local schools. Karen has certainly started that process with Nakusa, Plainfield, Adams, and Tri-County area. One of the action items we put was assess networking in progress and determine which schools should be contacted. So I guess, Karen, I'll turn to you and say, are there any schools that you have not contacted that you would like help with?
Well, the only school we've contacted is Nakusa.
It is Nakusa.
That's
Okay.
it. I mean, we really haven't gone any further than that. And we're still like, it's kind of a halting process. We're working at it, at getting that going. Gus, who is helping me with it, just sent out an email. Keith, who is the high school principal, was supposed to be at the State of Our Lake. I did not show up, which I don't blame him, but he didn't show up for that either. So, and that's where I was supposed to connect with him and talk about things. But we're working on it. But I think we need to work on the first one. I really am a big believer. We learn what we're doing and then we branch out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still at that. We're trying to figure out where we fit in.
So what I'm hearing is this is more of a low priority thing that
It is.
we'll get to later on.
Well, we're gonna work on the CUSA, but that's gonna be our test case.
Okay.
Rachel, can I ask, so does Plainfield, do they have like a middle school and a high school in Plainfield?
I'll defer to a true local. Not me.
Oh.
That is true. I don't know about
Anybody else?
Plainfield.
I don't really, I'm not sure. And then Tri-County would be, where would they be located?
I think Tri-County is the Plainfield.
Plainfield and Hancock.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bancroft, I
okay.
think, are the Tri-County,
Oh,
I think.
maybe a little bit outside of our watershed.
And just, well, Adams School kind of, I mean, it is outside of the watershed. Some kids that still live up here go to Adams High School or Adams Middle School, so.
No, they all live in New Crystal.
Not any on this, but it's not, I mean, any part on the southern part of the watershed or within the watershed at all. You know, because if you're a watershed group,
Yeah,
not just from.
you're right.
All right, so developing family-friendly events. This is something we mentioned was a thing we wanted to do down the road. But we do have a lot on the plate right now. I'm wondering if we want to kind of table that for the time being.
I think we should. I think with that, again, we're trying to grow the group. That might help, but it's not gonna, it won't help too much right now.
So we will run back through each of these really quickly and we'll assign priority. And then at a later time, we can hold a meeting just for those high priority pieces and start working on them. And then as it starts to take more form, you know, we can certainly, I can develop this into more of a timeline. So it's easier to see, you know, okay, this year we're gonna try to tackle this, next spring we're gonna start working on that. And then it can, you know, be a little more organized that way. So it doesn't feel like it's all right there in our face. Okay, so developing the pontoon outreach event for watershed members. So, we talked about that being kind of next year. To worry about that. Correct? So, how do we feel about categorizing that as a low priority?
Yeah, low priority for next year.
Okay. So ag events, also low priority at this time, or are we
I
only
don't
saying
think
medium?
so. Are we talking like the farmer events?
Correct,
Some difficult. I think we need to get out to a few of them, and if we got a couple of volunteers here, you know, certainly I'll be happy to go to a couple this fall. And, I think it's a high priority. I think we gotta continue building those relationships and be known. I mean, we are somewhat known out there. When you go out, they recognize who we are and what we've done, but we have to keep that up. As I mentioned, that kind of went fallow during the whole COVID thing, and, we haven't, reached out too much.
You know, it is a
I
little
think
bit
it's
of a
high.
drive.
Anybody disagree with that?
You know, if you wanna take it, then it's yours. I'm not gonna, I don't consider that for me.
I consider it more medium
Yeah,
or
medium
moderate, just
priority.
because of our,
Yeah. The size of our group and all, I don't think that is something
just because
capacity
we're
wise.
stretched too thin to commit
Yeah, it's capacity.
too much, I believe.
Like one person even joining, say, Rick Georgeson or
Yeah, I mean.
Scott
Rick and
Bordeaux
Scott are
going,
to communicate.
you know, I mean, it doesn't have to be where the whole group goes. If one person is going to act as a face or something for your group, I mean, a lot of these events, you do learn a lot from these events, but it's the networking that you get at these events that's outstanding. And in our field, it's a lot about who you know, not necessarily what you know all the
Hey,
time.
Jamie,
I think
is there
there's
another meeting about to
there's another
start?
meeting.
Oh, there is. What time?
4 o'clock.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll make sure we get out of here by 10:02 or
Like,
so.
you mean kind of lurky?
Okay, so for that one, I mean, we can leave it as a high priority, but,
I think the suggestion is it's a medium priority, and that's
Okay.
fine. Whoever can make it, great.
No, what I think that this could be identified as a medium, but it's gonna lead us to our higher
Right.
priority, which is becoming known to those people
Mm-hmm.
and getting to know who's up in the watershed and getting introduced from one to another and whatever. So I think it's a
I
baby
think-
step to get to
Right.
what we really wanna do.
It's a high priority, but because of capacity, I think that's what David's saying. It's really a
Yeah.
capacity thing. We
We're all
don't
good.
have
Yeah, we're good
the
with that.
coverage.
That's
Right.
realistic, right?
Yeah.
Right, we
We'll
have
do
to
what
be
we can.
realistic.
Okay, that sounds good. And I will say, just working with the farmers in Mill Creek, I know, Steven's Point is a little bit of a haul for you guys. but if anyone wanted to come to Rapids on a carpool, they will be having some fall and winter events this year.
At, Aaron's Event Barn,
Mm-hmm.
that's not too bad a trip.
No, not too bad. And there's always good food.
Yeah, great food. They'll have the chatterbox there again.
Yeah. All right, so attending wildlife and fisheries meeting, how we feel about that one?
I think we have the same capacity issue there right now. But, you know, my thought is maybe Phil and I can put together a newsletter, just to ask people within our, if you will, our mail list, group, find out who's involved with some of these, organizations who might be willing to be our intermediary. Start, you know, it's a fairly simple thing to do, and maybe that would help us, gain a little bit of capacity. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, good idea.
Okay. So maybe when we get up to the newsletter, which I'm guessing is gonna be more on the high end, we can put that in there.
I'm sorry, I missed that, Rachel.
Oh, when we talk about the newsletter?
Yeah.
You know, up at the top, when we talk about
Yeah.
membership in the newsletter,
Yeah.
it'll probably be more of a
Yeah,
high
we'll
priority.
ask, you know, we'll send out a newsletter and ask to see who's involved in what, wildlife groups or hunting groups.
Okay. So for now, do we feel low, moderate?
I'd say moderate.
Moderate?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so planning social events for members.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Like to hear it. Good deal.
Boy, it didn't take us long, but Hi. That's
All right.
fun.
So seeking out additional perspectives for board members.
I think that's low,
Well,
yeah.
I
I think we have
thing.
other things that will take out a lot more.
And they may feed into this.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, that's my thought. You guys can.
Our objective for, I think it's prospective board members, and we had talked about a target of about 9 board members or so, and many of them, somewhat might be from the town of Rome, like one, board member from the town of Rome and one from Charlotte. But we had also talked about some of our ag representatives, and we want to flesh our board out with, you know, fairly broad, group of people, and right now, I'm not sure that we know enough of our ag neighbors to really recommend, a couple of them to be on the board. I think we could probably move forward with a Tri-Lakes and a town board, member if we chose to do that. But I think what's gotta happen is probably we need to have a board meeting to even decide that. So maybe that's something we gotta schedule in the next 30 days or something.
So do we feel low for now?
Yeah.
Just, you know, just so you know my process here, putting things low, medium, or high is kind of telling us, okay, this is what we need to really attack right now, and then maybe we can kind of push down the line for a little bit.
And a good thing to keep in mind with, you know, other board members too is with the 9 key element plan, you do cover multiple counties, and maybe you don't know not necessarily even producers, but,
Right.
you know, other members of other counties and other communities, how are you gonna locate them and target them? Maybe somebody there would wanna be.
That's a really good point, Anna, because it's been suggested to us that we do just that, once we really understand, or once the 9 key is launched, that we should have representatives from each of those 4 counties. And, we'll end up with a fairly large board probably, but
It's not a bad thing though, because then you have
no, you don't
representation
have
and.
it's not bad at all.
All right, so bringing in our young business owners.
I think, my feeling on that is that's low to moderate, just because of our capacity right now, but I think it'd be fairly easy for one of us, and I would volunteer to do this, get hold of Mike Irwin and say, hey, are you guys still meeting as a group? And, because I did do a presentation, I'm sure it was pre-COVID, so it's been, let's say, almost 2 years ago. I've talked with them before, I'd be happy to talk with them again, because we've got more things to talk about right now. Yeah. So put my name down and I'll, get hold of Mike, if everybody's okay with that.
He's going to the end of August.
Oh, he is?
Just left for vacation.
Well, thank you for telling me. I have until the end of August. We're gonna have to get out of here soon.
All right.
Hovering.
The lurker is here.
Hovering at the door.
All right, just three more and then we're out of here. All right, so, speaking of demographic data.
I think we can, I'm not sure what priority should be assigned, but I feel as if we can get hold of Provost and Drew Watermullen and, just, that and, get hold of, North Central and find out what kind of demographic information we have to draw from. Maybe that's the starting point.
Yeah, I think, I think we can safely put this as high because
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna take a lot of capacity to get it done.
And it's really fundamental to everything we're doing.
Well, we're getting stink eye from a whole bunch of people.
All right.
I think Eric
So-
Olson might be a good resource there
Yeah,
as well.
that's true.
Instagram,
I'd say lower moderate. I mean, we really have to get capacity right now.
all right.
Maybe get the training rolling, that 30
Yeah,
minutes
that's
of
about it.
training,
Yeah,
so
get
we
the training
have-
going,
I
right.
mean, I know nothing about it, I said that before, and I haven't learned much since.
And then, developing that mechanism for mailing.
We need to get grant money to fund something like that.
And that's under there, so placing this at high would keep that high as well.
Especially,
Okay.
is that in the planning? Could that be in the planning portion of the
It
surface
may
water
be, it could
grant?
be that planning grant that we talked about earlier, it could also be in some of the private funding out there. And it could be the legacy grant, Bob and I had a preliminary meeting with, one of the, key functionaries about that. So I think it's high priority.
Okay, I agree, yeah.
I mean, I
It's in that
agree
grant
with
piece.
it.
Okay, all right. With that, we have our priorities.
Well,
We can work.
This has been great.
Oh, good.
It's taken a lot more time, but it always does, but these, I mean, identifying, the priorities are such an important part of moving this forward. Unfortunately, it's, put us in a position where, can we just bypass this, or anything urgent that one of you wants to bring up about your committees?
No.
I don't need that outline first.
Everybody okay? Yeah. Karen, you're okay with
I'm
it?
totally fine.
Good, all right. Well, let's do this. We,